Well, welcome. I'm seeing some faces I recognize. So Michelle, good to see you this morning, puppy and all. New puppy in the house. Jamie, good to see you. Thank you for talking with my contact from Park City. I so appreciate that. Yeah. Sharni, welcome. You're always a bright light in our lives when you show up. So thank you for coming. Ellie, I don't know you personally, but welcome. And if you want to come on video, great. If not, that's fine. I appreciate how everybody is on mute. Come on, that always makes it easier for us to hear people. So Ellie, welcome. And we're going to take a minute, let people get on, because I know that once we get started, when Lisa starts, we don't want any of you to miss a word of what she has to say. So Angela, welcome. It's good to have you with us this morning. You're such a leader in our community. Thank you. Thank you for being part of this today. I'm going to take a sip from another leader of ours. This is Mamachari Kombucha, for those of you who live in Utah. Amy is one of the friends of my daughter, high school friends, and she owns this kombucha company, and it is the best stuff. So if you're in Utah, get the Mamachari Kombucha. It's the healthiest kombucha I've ever had. Very all natural, just all natural stuff. So I wish we could get it out of state. All right. Let's give another minute. Then I can sip on the Concord grape kombucha.
Where do we get that kombucha, Lynn?
So you can get it. I just bought some at Nature's Grocers. It's in some Whole Foods. And she sells it on tap here in Salt Lake as well. So if you look up Mama Chari, you can follow her on Instagram, and Amy is really responsive. You can also DM her and ask her where to get it up in Logan, and she'll know. Yeah, she will know. It's just so naturally made. She's a friend of mine as well from the gym, so she's very health conscious. All right, we are going to jump in, and first thing off, Shannon's going to put into the chat. So we're going to talk about why we're here today. And it started about a year ago when Shannon and I were talking about what the theme would be for 2024. And what hit me that I had just been pondering, and then Shannon concurred, yes, that's the right theme for us, was in 2024, we will measure our success not by dollar signs, but by heartbeats. And so we developed a couple of new webinars that are free that talk to some of the themes that we are very involved in. One that we already had going, a free webinar, is webinar called Reinvention RX. So Shannon will put that in the chat. Just know that if you know somebody, or if you've been involved in career reinvention, that's a free resource for anyone that you know, or if you want to attend. We have that monthly, and our whole goal is to assist those people who are reinventing, because 33 to 40% of our clients are career reinventors. So we have a soft spot in our heart for that. The other thing that we do for free, if any of you are in the management of people, you're a therapist, you're a coach, you're a consultant, and you want to learn some skills around communicating and facilitating others, you want to be part of our coaching roundtable, which happens monthly as well. That's a free webinar to come in. Lisa's been part of that, and we will have Lisa back and have her teaching some coaching skills on that roundtable. So the next roundtable that we have coming up in September, I believe, is next week. Is that right, Shannon? And we'll be showing you how to read people, hack into your disc or your communication style. And we found a brand new disc that's free. If you want to get that new disc and take it and then come on to the call, we'll show you how to interpret it so that you get your unique personal needs that I talk about in my book, Met. You understand more about your value system, and you understand some of your superpowers. So you'll want to come to that one in the roundtable when Jamie's saying, sign me up. Sit in, learn some skills, learn how to facilitate, consult, coach, mentor, direct people better. Now, let's jump to the star of today. We have Lisa Baker on the call, and I know we have a lot of people who are going to be listening to this. We had, I think, 175 people sign up for this. So, Lisa, we have a lot of people waiting to listen. That's awesome. Lisa Baker is somebody I'm so excited to introduce you to. She is a distinguished human being, period. When you listen to her, as you experience her presentation today, you're going to see why I say that. As a human being with her presence, I have run into very few people that have the peace, the humility, the competence, and the confidence that she packs into her soul. So you're in for a treat. And she backs this not only with her presence, which I think is the leading treasure of Lisa. She has been a notable employee and executive within the Fortune 500 fintech companies. She also has been committed to championing minority leaders wherever she finds them. She has taken 30 years of working in the industries and corporations, and now she does her own work with Ascentum. And it's an award-winning coaching practice. Here's a couple of the awards: a Trailblazer in Business Award, Inc. Magazine's Best in Business Award, a Globee for Women-Owned Startup of the Year, and some other awards. So Lisa has distinguished herself, and she has the presence and power of one of the most transformational leaders that I've run into in a long time. And that's going to be the topic today. We're going to talk about the difference between transformational leadership, which, by the way, I see we mostly have women on this call today. We are leading globally in being examples of transformational leadership, and some of us don't even know that we are. We don't even know that we are giving up some of the BS of how we were taught how to lead, and we are leading from our own style, and that is actually naturally falling into the category of transformational leadership. So we're going to learn a whole lot about kind of the outdated and the old hierarchy and what men had to do to lead, and what we can now learn from that and not do, or maybe borrow snippets from, but mostly create our own leadership. So in today's Courageous Growth webinar series, subtitled Transformational Leadership for Today's Complex Business Environment, which you are all in, let's turn the time over to Lisa. Take it away, Lisa, and share with us what you will.
Oh, wow. First, I have to say thank you, Lynn, for inviting me and for all those kind words that you said. They mean a lot to me because knowing you, I know they come from the heart, and so I receive it as that. I'm like I said at the beginning, like I'm excited and I'm nervous, but I'm mostly excited because this topic is so near and dear to my heart, and I think what I hope will happen today as we get into the conversation is that it will be a conversation. I would love for it to be a dialogue amongst us, and it's great that we have a group that's of a size where we can do that. So I have some content planned that I'll go through. But if you have questions, like you can interrupt me right in and say, hey, I got a question, because I would love for us to have a dialogue around this topic. And let me share my screen, which I know works because we just tried this.
Yes, you did. So Shannon and I will keep an eye open for people who raise their hands to have that dialogue. How's that, Lisa?
Yes, that would be awesome.
Okay.
And yeah, so that way I'm aware of what we're doing and where we are in our process. So let's get this going. All right, so we are talking about transformational leadership and why it's essential in this complex business environment that we have for today. That's the focus. And so what I want you to expect and what I hope will happen by the end of our time together today is that you will walk away with a more clear understanding of what transformational leadership is, how that looks, how it's expressed, and be able to compare that to the traditional styles of leadership, but then walk away knowing, okay, am I a transformational leader or not? And how can I become more transformational in my leadership? That's the goal. And so we'll do that in 3 little easy steps, right? We'll talk about some of the traditional models, talk about transformational leadership so we can do that compare and contrast. And then the part that I'm most excited for is just the dialogue, because I would love to hear about the leadership challenges that maybe you're having and to see where transformational leadership can be a tool for helping you to overcome those and all of those wonderful things. And if you stay to the end of the call, there's a gift that I would love to share with all of you who are either here present or will listen later. So that's the goal. So let's start with what was and talk about transformational leadership models. So the key thing that traditional leadership models, the key thing that traditional leadership models have in common is that they tend to be focused on keeping things the way they are. maintaining the status quo, letting a few people at the very top of the organization have all of the control, and the thought leadership comes from there. And it all kind of then gets pushed down to lower levels in an organization. It's very hierarchical and control driven. And it really is about keeping the people who are in power, the people who are in the know, and there's sort of a line that you can draw. And then below that, it's a need to know basis. It's kind of the approach of most traditional leadership models. And they do have their place. And we'll talk about when they have a place and when it works and when it doesn't. And so we're going to talk about 3 specific models that fall into this traditional leadership space: command and control, transactional, and bureaucratic leadership. And so for each of those, we'll walk through kind of what the core idea of them is, when they work, and what the limitations are, so that we can kind of get a clear picture about that. So let's start with command and control. The central idea here is that there's centralized authority, that at the very top of the house, there are a few decision makers who are the leaders who make all the decisions, and then it gets pushed down. Now, this works well when you're in an environment that needs a strict kind of adherence to a set of protocols where things are repetitive. So think about the military, or think manufacturing. You know, in a military example, if we're in war, in battle, we can't have everybody trying to make decisions. We need everybody on the same page. We need a few people who are telling us what the battle cry is, and then everybody else needs to follow. We don't have time for, like, having a consensus about what needs to happen. So there are times when that model works. Manufacturing, right? Too, if there's a process that needs to follow, it works. The problem with that, though, is it's very limiting in terms of there's only a few people who have the authority to make real key decisions. So if you're an employee in that environment, you're not likely to be engaged or feel good in it, because you basically are just following the rules. You're making the widgets, and that's it. Don't ask any questions, just follow the process and let the leaders tell you what needs to happen.
So
Does that
Lisa,
make sense?
yeah, is it okay to summarize that if you are in a very rote situation and you don't need a lot of innovation and you don't need people to free think, you just need people to put their heads down and put one widget against another and make it work, then this is good.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. That is a great summary. Now, let's shift and talk about transactional leadership. It's just like it sounds. It's a transaction. This for that. Think of it as quid pro quo. In a transactional leadership model, it is very much performance driven. You do this thing that I, as the leader, want you to do, and then you get rewarded for that. If you fail to do the thing that I want you to do, then there is punishment for that, in a sense. That's punitive. There are negative consequences if you don't follow what the leadership has set out as the focus for how we want you to perform. Now, that works okay. It'll work well in an environment where roles are very clearly defined, where there's no blurring of the lines, where the roles are defined, the procedures are very clear for how to perform that role, and the environment is pretty predictable, right? We know what's going to happen. It works well. Think of a call center as an example where this may work, right? There's a process and a procedure that we want you to follow for taking the calls, how you communicate with the person on the other end of that call, how you end the call, and what you do after. And it's the same. We want you to just follow the process. And if the person on the other end of that call, that customer, rates you well, and you answer a certain number of calls in a certain amount of time, you've met the standard, you get rewarded for that. If you aren't answering your calls quickly enough, if you have people on the line longer than they need to be, if the customer on the other end of that call thinks that you were rude, you said something inappropriate, that is a failure, and there is punitive damage for that, in terms of, you may lose your job. Maybe you're on a warning. Maybe you don't get the bonus, that you get for meeting a certain standard. That's when that transactional kind of thing works. But think about the limitations of that. Nobody really wants to be in an environment where it's all transactional. You do your work, you get your paycheck, that's it, goodbye. Most people today want to have more autonomy in the work that they do. They want to have a say so in changing and helping to create the culture or the environment in which they want to work. So in these kinds of environments where it's very much transactional, it truly stifles innovation, because if I'm an employee in that environment, I don't want to take the risk that the thing I will try doesn't work and I get dinged for it. So engagement is going to be moderate at best, moderate in the sense of, if I want to get the good thing that comes from meeting the standard, so I'll be engaged up until that point. But beyond that, there's really no incentive for me as the employee in that environment to be creative and to try to push the environment forward.
Okay, so can I summarize this and see if I'm getting this? There's a little more autonomy. I get to think a little bit, because especially, let's say if I'm in a call center, I'm using my own fruition. It's not just rote one widget to another. It's interacting, it's adaptive when I'm working with another person. And so if I perform well, then I get more rewards. But it sounds like what's happening is, and this is probably why we have such high turnover in places like call centers, the most important thing is the transaction. Am I churning people through a process? Am I following it? Am I using my own charisma, charm, or whatever I bring with my superpowers? However, the whole focus is that social contract around, you pay me, I do the work, you pay me, right?
That's exactly right, right? So we've probably all been on one of those calls where you called into a customer service or helpline or something, and you're trying to have a conversation with the person on the other end, and you know they're reading you the script. And if you ask a question that's outside of the script, they go back and find their place within the script and read it to you again. It's because they are not incentivized to think outside the script. They are following the predictable pattern that they are paid to follow. Right.
So if we compare that, I think Daniel Pink brought these forward, but there's research that talks about why we're motivated to go to work. Like what motivates human beings at work? And we know one of those is autonomy. So there's a little autonomy here, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Another one is mastery. And so there's a little bit of mastery where I can get better. I can excel at some communication skills, but I don't see a lot of purpose. You know, the other one, the final one is purpose, is how does my purpose plug in? So those of you that are listening, think about this for a minute as Lisa goes through these leadership models. 3 of the human drivers that motivate us to be employees or to do our work: autonomy, you know, having some of our own say; mastery, getting better at something, expanding our skills, growing ourselves; and then purpose, having some connection to something bigger than ourselves. So kind of keep those in mind and see how they get to manifest and get either mirrored back to us and grown in these models that Lisa's giving us, or not at all.
Yeah.
Is that fair, Lisa, to put that out there?
Yeah, that's excellent. I love that framing. Yeah. So the last one here we'll talk about is bureaucratic leadership. I think we probably all can understand this. This is very heavily regulation, guideline driven, and it's slow as all get out because we got to go through a series of protocols and guidelines in order to determine the decision that needs to be made. And when something happens that falls outside of the documented regulations or guidelines, then we got to get a group of people together to come up with a new protocol or a new process to meet that new situation. And then it has to be vetted and then published and then pushed down, and then we follow the protocols. Think government.
Yeah. I'm almost falling asleep as I listen to you. It feels so heavy.
Exactly. But this is why government moves so slowly. It's the protocols and procedures, and again, very top-down, strict adherence to the guidelines. Here's a real world example. I called the Internal Revenue Service in mid-February, about my business taxes and about my designation as a subchapter S corporation. Boring stuff, but I know I have it. They're telling me I don't. Like, we got to get this figured out before March 15th when my business taxes are due. Left a message. February 16th. I only know this date because a representative from the IRS called me back 2 weeks ago and said, this is me from the Internal Revenue Service. My ID number is blah, 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 blah. I'm returning your call from February 16th. Did you still need help with that issue?
Holy cow.
It's
What did you say? I'm so
crazy.
curious.
Now imagine that. My taxes were due on March 15th. You're calling me in August to return a call that I made in February. Slow, 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 slow to get anything done. There's so much paperwork and documentation and protocols and guidelines. It's very, very rigid. So that's why when you go to the DMV, and I've lived in multiple states, and people that work in the DMV, they are all unhappy people. You ever notice that they're all angry? They're all upset. You don't have the exact form, the exact documentation. It throws them into a tizzy, and seems like they're angry with you. It's because of the bureaucracy and the protocols that are put in place, and it stifles any sort of freedom or creativity. It just is not ideal. Now, there are times when protocols must be followed, and we have to have that kind of model. When there are regulatory guidelines that have to be followed, when we're talking about health, right? And decisions like in healthcare and things like that. Again, we don't want you innovating what dosage of medication to give me. I need you to follow the protocol based on what you know about me. Don't get creative in that sense, right? So there are times when these things are necessary. But what I'd like to suggest to you is that we can have doses of these in the context of a transformational environment, and then it's much better. But overall, transformational leadership versus these traditional transaction, command and control, bureaucratic processes don't work alone.
Yeah. And, I think of, Jamie, I'm going to mention something. You can tell me if you want to comment on it. I got to watch Jamie hit some bureaucratic systems with two groups she was being asked to maybe consult with, and they'd only wanted her to consult with one of them. It was like they had these bureaucratic rules that this is how we do business, and if we hire you, then you can only do this. And so, Jamie, do you want to comment on how you use some transformational schools or tools and help these bureaucratic systems actually change what their policy was?
That sounds really badass. Now I want to hear what you say about it. I just pushed back. I just pushed back and I told them that if they wanted to use my name, that that I wanted to have the highest chance of possible as to like use my superpowers and get paid for it.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah.
So I'll tell you my version of it, like, because I think you're being humble. Jamie has a specialty. And if you talk about water science, you talk about bird migration, you talk about saving our Great Salt Lake, Jamie's on the front row, the front row. She even goes to Argentina because some of our migratory birds are down in Argentina during parts of the year. And she basically went in, and that was badass to push back and say, wait a minute, you're both going to use my name. It gives you clout. I can assist you both. Why don't we get the greater good by letting me work with both of you? And she helped them look at their bureaucratic rules and go, oh, almost scratch their head like, these are outdated. So Jamie, I thought that was badass. I thought that was transformational. What do you think, Lisa?
Yeah, it sounds pretty badass and transformational to me. Advocating for yourself, pushing back on the status quo. Because remember, that's the thing that these traditional models have in common. They're trying to just keep things the way they are and keep the people who have traditionally been in leadership in power. Truly, that's That's why they're structured that way. But we know the world is evolving. The business landscape is very different than what it used to be. And those old ways of being and thinking and operating do not work. That status quo, top-down leadership doesn't work. It fails to meet the moment because the world is changing. Things are shifting so quickly, and it requires a different kind of leadership. We are in a VUCA world. It is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Like things are changing rapidly. Think about what technology is bringing into the space and how quickly things change. Think about the access to information. Think about the global nature of the world and work today, right? We have to be able to respond to what's happening in the moment. And employees want to be more engaged, as Lynn just said, right? Those three things that really make us have meaning and want to be in the places where we work, to have autonomy and have some say so over where I'm working, to have my purpose and what matters to me be part of that process. You don't have that in those old models, right? There is a need today, with the complexity and the ever-changing nature of the world, to have leaders who aren't just pushing things down and have all of the control, but leaders who inspire, who can motivate people, who can help to drive change, and more importantly, even respond to change and anticipate it even. And you don't get that in those very traditional ways of operating business and in leading. It just doesn't work. The world that we're in necessitates a new approach. And I submit to you that the transformational model is what's needed to respond to the moment that we're in and meet the needs of our customers, our employees, and to stay relevant and competitive in today's environment.
Okay, so let me just review something here, make sure we got it. The VUCA is volatile, unknown, changing, and ambiguous. Is the C changing?
Complex, volatile.
Complex. Yeah.
It's uncertain.
Uncertain. Okay.
Complex and ambiguous.
Ambiguous. Boy, those are hard to navigate.
Right? So volatile, right? It's not stable. It's we don't have that status quo. Lots of change happening. It's uncertain because lots of times roles aren't as clear as they used to be. We need people to wear multiple hats. We can't be sure of exactly what outcomes are going to be. Complexity is brought into the workplace because of diversity, because of technology, because of competition and the global nature of work. It makes things much more complex than they used to be. Competition and all of that creates this environment that we're at, this world. And it's ambiguous because, everything isn't black and white. There are so many shades of gray.
Right.
And sometimes it's not clear who's the right person to do a certain thing or who's best equipped to do it. And so many more organizations now are matrixed. So to give you an example, my last role in corporate America as a GM in a Fortune 500 financial services company, I had people who directly reported to me. Right? They're under my leadership. So in that case, I can, you got that command and control. But the majority of my team, though they supported me in my portfolio, they did not report directly to me. So I had a marketing leader. I was in a sales organization. I had a marketing leader for my client's portfolio, but that marketing leader reported up through the chief marketing officer. They weren't in my organization. They reported to a peer. My finance leader, same thing. He reported to someone in finance, not directly to me. And yet he spent most of his time working on my portfolio. So you've got people that are not directly reporting. We don't always have that direct authority over people. Yeah. So now that creates ambiguity, right? Well, who's supposed to do what? Do I answer to you, Lisa, or do I answer to my boss? Because you're really not technically, if I look at an org chart, you're not my boss.
So here's my question to you, because I have an opinion about this and a hope. It seems like this shift in leadership is necessary. It's going to take mindset changes more than behavior changes, in my opinion, first. it necessitates a new approach, which is probably the transformational leadership you're going to tell us more about. And it seems like we're in an evolution where those of us on the call and people that you and I work with constantly, Lisa, we can nurture, nudge, challenge, grow, stretch it to happen faster. My sense is that we're evolving toward it naturally anyway. Like
Absolutely.
the bullshit flag is getting thrown on so
Yeah.
much, so many different places, especially with minority women coming forward in leadership positions more and more, which you and I will talk about here in a bit, because we both are proponents of that. And a youthful voice that is now becoming even more vocal than some of our millennials were, and they were starting to be vocal. We have a youth vote and a youth field of employees coming forward. They're like, yeah, we can't do it the old way. So
Yeah,
we comment on that
cannot.
before you move forward?
Yeah, absolutely. You're spot on. All of those things that you mentioned, and how about a big game changer that pushed us toward this that we didn't plan for was the global pandemic. The world of work completely changed. I'm not going to say changed, it transformed.
Yeah.
Because if you change something, you can change it back.
Okay.
So
we're
that's
not going back.
We're not. Hey, that sounds like a good rallying cry. We are not going back.
Somebody should use that.
Yeah. No, but truly, it has changed the way we work. It has caused people to think very differently about what matters to them and what they're willing to accept and allow in work environments. So you're absolutely right. We're being pushed, whether we like it or not, because of the evolution of business and all of those things we just talked about, toward an environment that calls for transformational leadership. And so that's why this is so important. So let me give you some definitions, some words, because words are so important to me, to help you make the distinction between those traditional models we just talked about and transformational leadership. Transformational leadership is much more about having a compelling vision. If you're a transformational leader, having a compelling vision that you can share with others to get them rallied around the idea. It is much more inclusive, right? Because you recognize that you, as the leader, don't have to have all the answers, nor should you have all the answers. It invites diversity of thought and idea and ways of being, so that there is this continuous nature of growth and involvement. But it starts with us as the leader and our own personal growth. It invites collaboration and innovation, and it's all about being adaptive and responsive, as opposed to those traditional models, which are much more reactive and trying to maintain a status quo. We're absolutely trying to do the exact opposite, which is to push the business and ourselves forward to its best and highest version of itself that's going to continue to evolve. It's part of the reason why my coaching practice is called Ascentum. It's about an ascent. There is, and it's not linear. You don't go there. It's, you may go a little around, but eventually, but it's about becoming a higher, better version of yourself, your business growing as you grow. That's the nature of transformation. And I use the butterfly image because it, for me, is the easiest way to understand truly transformation. You started as one thing, in this case, a caterpillar, and through a process, a series of steps, you come out completely different, a butterfly. And the butterfly cannot go back and be a caterpillar again. It cannot. And this is what we're talking about for ourselves. Once you get really clear about who you are and what you value and the kind of person you want to be, you can't go back to your old self. You cannot. You are fundamentally, permanently transformed. But it starts with that self-transformation. If we're going to create environments and businesses and lead teams that are transformational, we have to do the work on self first. Transformational leadership is very much an inside-out work. Once we get clear about who we are, get aligned with our values where we're really centered, then we're in a better position to help transform others, our teams, and then the business. It's about very much having a shared purpose. When you talk about having meaning and purpose in your work, the workforce today, especially younger people, are much more about doing work that aligns with what I care about. And I, as a transformational leader, have to be able to articulate what my purpose is in a way that makes others want to get involved.
Yeah.
True story example, Lynn and I were on a webinar together. When I saw them, I was like, it's a funky fly kind of style. I like this. Okay. When they opened their mouth to speak, I was like, ooh, I need to know this person. Just by being authentic, showing up, sharing idea, talking about soul salt, and the way that they spoke about it drew me in instantly. That's what transformational leaders do. It's just how it is. And we can then take that and help to develop others so that what we're creating is environments that adapt, and people that adapt is what Lynn would call being a challenge-ready adult. That's what transformational leadership is all about.
Thank you, Lisa. And you know what? I am just, and Sharni, that's so cute. I am hearing something that I felt myself over the last 2 weeks. And now I think you've put words to it. So everybody on the call, just respond to this, and you can respond in chat if you'd like. What I think you're saying underlying transformational leadership is, while it's purpose-filled, it's transformative, it develops us, it inspires us, we become more adaptive versus calcifying into old frames of just being robots. It requires then of all of us, not just those who are transformational leaderships, but the leaders, but those of us who are following transformational leaders, to take more responsibility, to self-author, to belly up to the bar, and to own the responsibility of living our own best life. Like transformational leadership, that we can't just float underneath it. I'm hearing that, and I've been thinking it, and now I'm really hearing it in your words. Do you want to speak to that, Lisa? And
Yeah,
guys,
that is
the chat.
absolutely right. You have fast forwarded 2 or 3 slides in the page. It starts
Okay.
with no, but this is great because I'm happy to start. It starts with being.
Being.
Being is
Okay.
the first component of the transformational leadership model.
So what do you
That's
guys think? Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, Lisa finishes, go to chat and tell us, what are you guys seeing about you having to have some responsibility if you're following a transformational leader? Keep going, Lisa.
Yeah, no, this is really good. So I want to pose this question. So Lynn has given you a question. Please respond in the chat. I want you to just think about this as I give you a real world example about leading transformationally. I want you to think about, how do you lead your team and even leading yourself when sudden unexpected changes happen? How do you naturally respond? What do you do? Right? These gives you a clue about whether you're leaning more traditional or transformational. Now, I'll give you 2 examples, one really quick and one we can talk more about. So if I go back to the pandemic, at the time I was working at Synchrony. As I told you, I was a SVP and a GM for a big portfolio client. The pandemic happened. Now, in financial services, we have people in call centers that are responding to cardholders' calls about a number of things, but that's an environment that has a lot of regulations and protocols with it, because we're dealing with people's personal information, we're dealing with their financial information. So in those call centers, there's strict security, all sorts of measures to protect the customer, to protect their data, all of that. Pandemic happens and we got to get everybody home. We never contemplated having people work from their own individual homes and what those environments would be. That would be impossible. That's crazy thinking when you're talking about financial services, because we need everybody in the same environment where it's regulated and controlled, and we have all of the systems and tools in place to monitor people, to make sure there's no shenanigans with your personal information. But we had to change that really fast. because we couldn't be in the office and we couldn't be together and we couldn't have these big teams working on shifts together. So what do? We had to quickly innovate and figure out how to get everybody that was working in those centers working from their own homes, keeping the safety and security of our cardholders' information intact. We had to think about things that would have never occurred to us. We had employees who actually were homeless, that were living out of their cars or living from place to place. And so they didn't have a stable environment that they could work from home in. We had employees who didn't have internet or not high enough speed internet to be able to work from home. We never would have known that, and we never contemplated it. But we had to figure out all of those things if we were going to get everybody in that call center to continue to have their job and be able to do it from home. And we had to do that really quickly, right? So that's a past example. How do you respond when sudden, unexpected things change? We figured it out. We got everybody at home working. Now, it meant we had to do some things like helping people that didn't have a home with figuring out and finding a place where they can call home. We never would have known that otherwise. Now, let's talk about today. We're going to talk politics. Now, not advocating for any candidate. I just want to talk about a process, a rapid change that happened. We thought we knew who our Democratic and Republican candidates were. We had Joe Biden, Donald Trump. These are the candidates. Those are the campaigns they're running. Something unexpected happened. We had a horrific, tragic, hard to watch debate. And after that, everything suddenly changes. There's this groundswell of people saying, Mr. Biden, Mr. President, sir, you have got to get out of this race. Publicly saying those things out loud that maybe they have been saying quietly before, we don't know. But there's all this pressure. Now he has a decision to make. What's he going to do? He kept saying, I'm not going, I'm staying in, whatever, fine. But on this one Sunday, an email or something goes out and he announces, I'm getting out of the race. Sudden, unexpected change. Now think about all the things that have to happen because of that one decision. We need a new candidate at the top of the ticket as a Democrat. Okay, quickly decided that's going to be Kamala Harris. That's who Joe Biden endorses. Okay, but now she's got to get the votes to support that, the delegates to support that. She's got to pick a running mate. We have to have a new clear platform that she's going to run on, because now she's at the top of the ticket and not just at the, a supportive player in that role. We have to have new signage, new advertisements, new team maybe to lead the campaign now. So many things that have to happen in a short period of time. And within a span of about 4 weeks, we also have to plan an entirely different convention than we had planned. Every speech has to be rewritten. We've got to rethink who the speakers are and how we want that to go. All of these things need to happen, and they need to happen quickly in order to rescue and then keep this campaign going. Think about how many changes had to happen in a short time. How many people had to be involved in the process? And if that happened in any of the traditional models, a bureaucratic one where, we just got the top down, or a performance-based kind of transactional model. If you do this well, then you'll be rewarded. But if you mess this up, you're out. We don't have time for those kind of shenanigans. Command and control. Well, only Kamala is going to make the decisions, or Kamala and a few people that she designates to have authority. Only they can make decisions, and then they'll tell everybody else what to do. There's no way in a traditional model that you could turn around an entire campaign in 4 weeks' time and do all the things that have to happen. There's just no way that can happen. So regardless of which candidate you support or what you're thinking about, if you think about the process, because equal change, maybe not to the degree, but similar changes have to happen on the other side of the ticket. If Mr. Trump's team has been preparing for, competing for the presidency with Joe Biden, and now he has a whole new competitor, Do our same messages still apply? How do all the ads that we have created and have been running are targeting someone who's no longer the candidate? So we got to make all new ads too. Like everything on both sides has to change. And their ability to respond and respond well is directly correlated to the type of leadership environment that exists within your organization. And starting with the type of leader that you are and how you personally respond to this volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world in which we live.
Wow. Yeah, so transformational leadership is actually the most nimble
Yeah.
and adaptive form that we have. And going back to VACU, there are I said it wrong, but
That's okay, but you got the letters.
Yeah.
VUCA, VUCA.
Right, VUCA. We actually probably can't exist as a human race unless we adopt transformational leadership. And I'm going to get on a bit of a soapbox. This is not political at all, although there is something happening in politics that mirrors this personal opinion. And some of you who follow me, you know this is my opinion. I want to state it today because I have a deep belief system, and Lisa, you're part of this movement. As a queer individual, I have never felt more threatened than I have in the last 8 years. My right to live, my right to earn a living, my right to love who I will choose to love. My connection with my family has all been put on the table on the chopping block as a potential set of rights that can be wiped away as quickly as one's life could be wiped away. Serious stuff. And I have spent the last 4 years since 2016, and now another 4, building my opinion that the people who know how to lead at this time are women of color. You have been out of the closet longer than the queer people have. You've been on the front line. You've been battered, beaten, bloodied, belittled, and you still organize, educate, grow, lead, and transform. And so I wanted you guys to learn from Lisa. I'm also a proponent of where we see women in color leading in office, in industry, in homes, in schools, we will see the changes that we need. So I just wanted to put that out there, that I believe the largest group of transformational leaders today live within women of color who are in leadership positions. So I just wanted to state that for the record, Lisa. That's one of the reasons why I asked you to be the speaker around this topic. So I just wanted to put that out there so that a lot of you understand where my mind is, where my heart is, because my life and the way I've lived it is on the line right now, more than ever before. So Lisa, thank you. I applaud you and your sisters so very much.
Yeah, it is very fair to say that a lot of work in terms of transforming the nation in which we live has been, on the backs of women and women of color in particular, for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna pause right there because I'll get all emotional. And those who know me know I cry at Hallmark commercials. And if I start talking long enough about something that's really close to my heart, the tears are just going to come. And I'm going to get through today's call without tears. So
yes. Okay. Carry on.
So we're carrying on. Listen, the bottom line is transformational leadership requires new ways of being, seeing, saying, and doing. That's the bottom line. What worked before won't work anymore. So this transformational leadership model that I'm going to walk you through here in about the next 5 minutes or so is not mine. This comes from the Nebo company and an amazing woman, Kate Ebner, who's the founder of the Nebo company. And I happen to do some leadership coaching for Nebo. But what she said, I think, is just spot on. And she created this model, and it's shaped like the lens of a camera for a reason, because it's emphasizing this fact that transformational leaders have to have a certain way of seeing, to see beyond what present realities are, to have a vision for the future, the one that takes these seemingly impossible things and from that creates new possibilities, builds and forges new relationships to create the outcomes that we desire. That's what transformational leadership is really about. And so we're going to talk quickly about these 4 components: the be, the see, the say, and the do. So be, it all starts with being, for sure. It's about this authenticity piece. And in order to be a transformational leader, you got to be you. You got to get really clear about who you are, what you value, and those things that are just core to your identity. Because showing up as your authentic self and really clear about who you are is the only way that you can effectively lead transformation in your organization, with those around you, in your family, and all the places that you're going to show up. And so that's why this inner work on self is the first and most important part of being a transformational leader. Transformational leadership is authentic, period. Now, when you are really clear about who you are, what you value, what your purpose is, and you can shed all the shoulds that people put on you and be you, that frees you to have a much more clear vision for the present and for the future that aligns with who you are and the change that you want to create in the world. Clarity about vision is the next step. What do you see? Because that's how we create transformation. What do you see for the future? What's happening next? What am I sensing from the world around me and the change that's happening? Do I like what's coming? How will what's coming affect me? And what do I want to do about it? And then you probably heard this phrase, like, if you see something, say something, right? So that's the next thing. Once you have that clarity of vision and you can see what's happening and where we need to go, now you got to say something about it. This is the next most important part. Transformational leaders are excellent storytellers, like Lynn. They have a way of communicating a message in a way that compels people to want to get on board. If I go back to my example of the transformational change that happened in politics here recently, think about what also happened as a result of that, that naturally happened without anyone saying, hey, we need to do these things. It just happened because transformational leaders see what's happening. They have a vision for what needs to be done. They understand the picture and then they go to work, right? So think about women, the 14,000 Black women that got themselves together and got on a conference call to say, how do we help this new person that's at the top of the ticket who just so happens to be a woman of color? We have to help make this happen. And then people heard about that. And now you got, white dudes for Kamala and Republicans for Kamala and queer folks for Kamala and all the people for Kamala, regardless of whether you're voting for her or not. Think about the groundswell that happens when transformational leaders get involved in a process. Things just start to happen. And now all of this money is coming in and everything is coming together. That's a real-time, real-world example of what transformational leadership does. You see what's happening, you have a vision of what's possible for the future, and now you communicate that, rally people around you because you need support. You get all the resources that you need, communicate the vision clearly, effectively, in a way that inspires and compels people to get on board. And then we get to the final sort of step in the process, the doing, right? Now that we all see it, we know what needs to happen. Now go. Galvanize people, give them what they need, get out of the way, and let the magic happen. Be there to support them and energize and keep things going. And this is not it's not, linear. We weave in and out of these pieces, because we as leaders continue to grow and evolve. Our vision is going to be sometimes cloudy, sometimes a little more clear, so we have to do a little bit more work. We constantly have to communicate and check for understanding and take in new information so that we're constantly evolving ourselves, our strategy, our vision for the future, and getting people engaged to go and do. It's not top down. It's very much, I don't know, an in and out weaving kind of thing that happens through these phases of transformational leadership, being, seeing, saying, and doing for each of us as transformational leaders. And the beauty is when who I am and what I see for the future aligns with who you are and what you see for the future. Now we can put these ourselves together and have exponential results. And that's kind of what happened with all of these groups of people springing up and in their own way getting together to decide what they wanted to do to bring the vision that they see for this next election and for the future of our country.
Nice.
So there's just 3 core behaviors that I want to share with you, and then I'm going to stop talking. So transformational leaders, they inspire people to their full potential. They really embody these principles. And it's about influence, innovation, and integrity. And I'm going to take them backwards. The integrity piece, again, that's why knowing who you are, what you value is so important, so that you're always operating from a space that aligns to your true north and what matters to you. This is what allows people to trust you, to know that even when things are volatile and things are changing all around us, I can count on you to be true to yourself. That means I can trust you and continue to follow you. When you're that kind of person that operates from a space of integrity, then you build connections that will allow you to create environments where people can innovate, and you have the ability to influence because I trust you, because I know you're leading me, in a direction that's positive and good and aligns with who I am. So those are 3 core pieces to being a transformational leader and inspiring that kind of change. And we do this, one, because it benefits us, but ultimately this is what makes business work in this environment. Transformational leadership really is the only model that allows us to be able to adapt and respond and create the kind of continuous growth and improvement that is absolutely required in the world in which we are now living with all the things that we have to navigate.
Boy, period, exclamation mark.
That's it, period. So, questions, comments, feedback.
Well, I know
Just
I would.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yes.
It was very, very succinct, inspiring, clear, strong messaging. I feel really I'm just grateful to be able to be a part of this and have you share that today. So thank you. You got my brain spinning.
Thanks, Shani.
Okay.
Boy.
Well,
Yes, here we go. Tell us.
Let me just say, I want to thank you for allowing me to be here and to be in this space and to share today. I have created a workbook for transformational leaders that will help us to really do our own assessment and reflect so that we can evolve and become the leaders that we desire to be. If you go to ascentum.com/transformational, you will be able to download this for free, and I would love for you to do that. It help you to assess what your leadership style is, more about the transformational framework, and giving you some questions that you can respond to really get clear about where you are in your journey to transformational leadership and where there may be some opportunities for you to grow. And then finally, kind of create an action plan based on what you discover by going through that journey. And the final thing I'll say today is I would love to connect and remain connected with you. And so if you want to connect with me, please do so on LinkedIn. I am Lisa L. Baker. You can also follow me on Instagram and connect there at Ascentum. Yeah, and that's what I have for you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I know those of you who follow us and are on these webinars, you'll see Lisa again. I'm quickly going to ask her after we finish today to be part of our roundtable again with this same topic. So Lisa will be in touch. But thank you for attending. Thank you for being such respectful individuals. Lisa, you'll want to go and read the chat and see some of the comments. It's so great to see the next level of leadership coming through your faces today. So thank you for everything. Lisa, thank you for your time and your expertise.
Oh, it is my pleasure. Thank you all very much.
Take care.